If you're over 50 and following a ketogenic diet, one everyday food could be quietly working against the blood flow in your legs, especially overnight. Stick with me and I'll tell you which food that is, plus 8 other vegetables to watch, why they matter for leg circulation, and practical, safe ways to keep enjoying them while protecting your circulation on keto. Quick medical note up front. This video is for information only. If you take blood thinners, diuretics, have kidney disease, or are under medical treatment, talk with your prescriber before changing your diet or supplements. I won't tell you to stop any medication. Only your clinician can do that safely. As we age, a few things happen that affect the way blood reaches your legs. Small arteries and capillaries become less elastic, kidneys often clear certain compounds more slowly, and overnight dehydration, which becomes more likely on a low-carb ketogenic plan, concentrates blood and urine. Think of small vessels in your legs like tiny garden hoses. Over time, they stiffen, and any sediment or small pebble-like particles make the flow slower. Combine that with a keto-driven drop in fluid and shifts in electrolytes, and a vegetable that mattered very little when you were 35 can behave differently at 55 or 70. Why does this matter practically? Reduced microcirculation in the legs shows up as cold feet, heavier legs after walking, cramps at night, slower healing of minor cuts, or more frequent numbness. None of the vegetables I'll mention cause serious events on their own. Instead, certain foods can contribute to patterns that may make existing vulnerabilities more likely, especially if you're on medications like anticoagulants, for example warfarin, antiplatelet drugs, for example clopidogrel, Plavix, or diuretics, or if your kidney function is reduced. On keto, extra caution matters because shifts in water, salt, and electrolytes are part of the metabolic change. I'll count down 9 vegetables, starting with number 9 and building to the single item in the title you should be most careful with. For each one, I'll explain the mechanism relevant to leg microcirculation, add a keto-specific note, and give practical, non-prescriptive tips you can discuss with your clinician. 9. Corn. Mechanism. Corn is relatively high in starch and can raise blood sugar and insulin more than other vegetables. Sharp spikes in blood sugar can trigger short-term hormonal responses, stress hormones, and vasoconstrictive effects that temporarily reduce microcirculation, especially in the extremities. Keto note. Corn is not keto-friendly at regular serving sizes. Even small portions can knock you out of ketosis and change how your body handles fluids and electrolytes. Practical tips. Treat corn as an occasional treat rather than a staple on keto. If you do eat it, pair it with a protein and healthy fat to blunt the blood sugar rise, and have it earlier in the day rather than as a late snack. If you're on blood sugar medications, mention corn intake to your provider so they can monitor expectations. 8. Raw carrots. Mechanism. Raw carrots contain more available sugars than when they're cooked slowly, and eating large raw portions can cause modest blood sugar elevations and subsequent shifts in peripheral circulation. Raw, crunchy carrots are often eaten as snacks, which may mean they're consumed alone without protein or fat. Keto note. Even though a small carrot might fit in some keto plans, eating multiple raw carrots can jeopardize ketosis and contribute to nighttime cramps by changing insulin and electrolyte balance. Practical tips. Limit raw carrot snacks if you find they make your legs feel tingly or you notice cramps after eating them. When you want the flavor and crunch, dip a small amount in full-fat protein-containing foods, like Greek-style yogurt if your plan allows it, or a nut butter, to slow absorption. Cooking carrots softens sugars and alters glycemic response, so consider small cooked servings paired with fat and protein. 7. Romaine lettuce and other leafy greens very high in vitamin K, like kale and collards. Mechanism. Greens such as romaine, kale, and collards are rich in vitamin K. For people taking vitamin K-sensitive anticoagulants, for example warfarin, large or inconsistent changes in intake of high vitamin K vegetables can affect how these medications work, which indirectly influences bleeding and clotting balance and therefore circulation safety. Keto note. Leafy greens are typically keto-friendly and a great source of fiber and micronutrients, but inconsistency, one week low, the next week a huge salad, can be a problem when on anticoagulants. Practical tips. If you take an anticoagulant, keep your intake of high vitamin K greens consistent from week to week, and tell your prescriber about your diet. You don't need to avoid greens, but sudden large increases or decreases can change medication effect. Pair salads with a protein and fat to slow absorption and help maintain stable blood volume overnight. 6. Garlic and onions. Mechanism. Garlic and onions contain natural compounds that can slightly thin the blood and promote vasodilation. That's often beneficial, but when combined with prescription blood thinners, it can enhance anticoagulant effects in unpredictable ways.
On the circulation side, small changes in clotting and vasodilation can alter microflow patterns in vulnerable small vessels. Keto note. Garlic and onions are common flavorings in keto meals. They're low in net carbs in typical amounts, but some people add large amounts or take concentrated supplements. Practical tips. Use fresh garlic and onion for flavor, but be cautious with concentrated supplements or large raw portions if you're on anticoagulants. Mention any herbal supplements to your clinician.
Prefer cooked versions for gentler effects, and avoid taking garlic or onion supplements at the same time as anticoagulant doses without medical guidance. 5. Asparagus. Mechanism. Asparagus has mild diuretic properties in many people, increasing urine output and shifting fluid balance. Overnight, that can contribute to lower circulating blood volume if overall hydration is not maintained, making the blood a bit thicker and slowing microcirculation in the legs. Keto note. On keto, you already tend to lose more water and salt during the initial and ongoing phases. Adding natural diuretics like asparagus can deepen overnight dehydration unless you actively replace fluids and electrolytes. Practical tips. If you enjoy asparagus, eat it earlier in the day and pay attention to fluid and salt intake. Drink water regularly and include electrolyte sources, sodium, potassium, magnesium, as recommended by your care team. If you take prescribed diuretics, tell your clinician about frequent asparagus consumption so they can assess overall volume status. Quick reminder and a small request. If this is helpful, tap like and subscribe for more senior keto health tips. Also remember the medical disclaimer. If you're on blood thinners, diuretics, or have kidney concerns, discuss these points with your prescriber before making changes. 4. Tomatoes. Mechanism. Tomatoes are high in potassium and also slightly acidic. Both of these properties can influence electrolyte balance and, in some individuals, affect how quickly muscle and vascular cells respond. For people with compromised kidney clearance or who are taking certain blood pressure medicines or potassium-sparing diuretics, sudden large intakes of tomato-based foods can shift potassium and fluid balance in ways that change leg circulation dynamics. Keto note. Tomatoes are often used in sauces and salads on keto and are generally acceptable in moderate amounts, but large servings, especially in concentrated tomato products, can increase potassium load and affect hydration status. Practical tips. Favor fresh, moderate portions of tomato rather than concentrated tomato products late in the evening. If you take ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics, mention your habitual tomato intake to your provider. Pair tomato dishes with fat and protein to stabilize digestion and avoid empty carbohydrate additions. 3. Broccoli. Mechanism. Broccoli is rich in vitamin K and other nutrients. Like other high vitamin K vegetables, inconsistency in intake can affect anticoagulant medication effects, which in turn influences clotting balance. Broccoli can also be a bulky fiber source. In large raw handfuls, it can alter absorption dynamics of nearby nutrients or supplements. Keto note. Broccoli is a staple on many keto menus, and that's generally fine. The issue arises mainly when intake swings wildly or when supplements interact with diet.
Practical tips. Keep broccoli servings consistent week to week if you are anticoagulated. Steam or lightly cook it to reduce hardness and make it easier to pair with fats and proteins. If you take supplements that contain vitamin K or minerals, tell your provider to coordinate timing and monitoring. 2. Corn again? No. Number 2 is raw corn's cousin in the vegetables list. Sweet potatoes and starchy roots are often substituted on low-carb plans. That to honor the original list, at number 2 we'll highlight another commonly misunderstood vegetable, raw or lightly cooked large portions of carrots and beets when eaten frequently. Mechanism. Starchy roots like beets and larger portions of carrots supply concentrated carbohydrates that can change the blood sugar and insulin responses, triggering temporary changes in peripheral circulation and possibly increasing overnight leg cramps. Keto note. Root vegetables are generally higher in carbs and can displace fat-protein balance needed for sustained ketosis, which in turn affects fluid and electrolyte dynamics. Practical tips. If you include beets or larger carrot servings, do so in small portions and earlier in the day. Combine with fat and protein to limit blood sugar spikes. Be mindful of timing if you experience nighttime cramps or heaviness. 1. Spinach, the food in the title. Mechanism. Spinach contains relatively high levels of oxalates, plant compounds that combine calcium to form tiny crystals. In people with slower kidney clearance or lower urine volume, these oxalate calcium crystals can accumulate in urine or on vessel linings and behave like microscopic pebbles in a small hose. In small vessels of the legs, particularly where circulation is already narrow, that can contribute to interrupted flow or irritation of the vessel wall.
On top of that, if you take calcium supplements and eat large amounts of raw spinach at the same time, you increase the chance that calcium and oxalate meet and form crystals. Keto note. On a ketogenic diet, you tend to have lower glycogen, and your body also loses more water and sodium unless you compensate. Lower urine volume concentrates oxalates and minerals, increasing the relative risk that oxalate calcium particles will form. Many people on keto also take supplements, calcium or vitamin D, which can increase the calcium available to bind oxalate if timing isn't considered. Practical tips. You don't need to ban spinach. Instead, think about how you prepare and when you eat it. Cooked spinach releases fewer oxalates into the digestive stream than raw, and cooking with adequate fluid reduces the rush of concentrated compounds. Favor cooked over large raw salads of spinach, especially at night. Avoid taking calcium supplements at the same meal as large spinach portions. Instead, separate supplement timing and discuss the schedule with your clinician.
Rotate your greens. Include lower oxalate options like kale in moderation, or mixed lettuces that are lower in oxalate content. Drink water consistently throughout the day and prioritize electrolyte balance on keto to keep urine volume and blood flow healthier. Deeper look at spinach and why it gets the title. Imagine a narrow garden hose that's been used for years. It's a little stiff, and any tiny grit can block flow more readily than when it was new. Spinach, when eaten raw in large amount and combined with low fluid intake plus calcium supplements, can increase the likelihood of microscopic particulate formation. In younger, well-hydrated systems, these particles are usually harmlessly handled. After 50, with the kinds of kidney and vascular changes we've discussed, the balance shifts. The ketogenic diet amplifies that shift by lowering fluid and altering mineral handling. That's why spinach is the single item to be most mindful of for leg microcirculation on keto. Keto-safe alternatives and daily practices when you like spinach. Swap a handful of raw spinach for mixed greens that include lower oxalate lettuces, or use cooked spinach in a sauté with olive oil and a protein source, rather than a huge raw spinach salad. If you want the nutrient spinach offers, spread servings across the week rather than consuming a very large portion at once. If you take calcium supplements, take them at a different time of day than your biggest spinach meal. Always maintain steady hydration and keep electrolyte intake consistent. A few practical general rules of engagement for better leg blood flow on keto. 1. Hydration first. On keto, aim to maintain regular fluid intake through the day. That doesn't mean chugging huge volumes right before bed. It means steady sipping and ensuring your salt and electrolyte balance is adequate as advised by your clinician. Low urine volume concentrates oxalates and other compounds and can make microcirculation more fragile. 2. Timing matters. Eat high oxalate, diuretic, or starchy vegetables earlier in the day rather than late at night. Overnight is when dehydration combines with slowed circulation to make issues more likely. 3. Pair smartly. Whenever you consume a vegetable that can spike blood sugar or contain concentrated compounds, pair it with a protein and healthy fat. That slows absorption and produces gentler hormonal responses that support stable circulation. 4. Cook when appropriate. For spinach and some other greens, cooking reduces the bioavailability of oxalates. For garlic and onions, cooking tempers strong effects.
Garlic extract. Discuss timing with your clinician so you avoid combining them with meals high in oxalates or natural blood-thinning compounds. 7. Watch portion control. Vegetables are healthy, but large single meals composed mainly of one high-risk item, big raw spinach salad or multiple baked potatoes, for example, are where problems are more likely to show up. 8. Report changes. If you notice increased bruising, unusual bleeding, worsening leg heaviness, sudden swelling, or new patterns of numbness or slow-healing sores, mention these to your healthcare provider promptly. Don't adjust medications on your own. A few final practical examples that bring it together. Breakfast. If you like a green smoothie with raw spinach, consider reducing the spinach portion, or replace some raw spinach with lower oxalate greens and add a protein like collagen or a small full-fat yogurt if your keto plan allows it. Drink a glass of water before and after the smoothie. Dinner. If you prepare asparagus as a side, eat it earlier in the evening and pair it with a protein and a bit of salt to preserve fluid balance overnight. If you're on a diuretic, mention this routine to your clinician. Snacks. Swap multiple raw carrots for a small portion of nuts or a hard-boiled egg to prevent spikes and ensure electrolyte and protein balance. Supplements. If you take calcium or concentrated herbal products like garlic extract, note the time you take them and discuss whether that timing should be shifted relative to your spinach or high oxalate meals. A final medical reminder.
This information is intended to help you make safer choices and have more informed conversations with your healthcare team. It is not a substitute for medical advice. If you take anticoagulants, such as warfarin, antiplatelet agents, such as clopidogrel, diuretics, or have known kidney issues, tell your prescriber about your dietary habits and supplements before making changes. To close, remember the simple checklist. Keep hydrated and balance electrolytes, time high oxalate and diuretic vegetables earlier, pair carbs with protein and fat, keep vitamin K intake consistent if you're anticoagulated, and separate calcium or concentrated supplements from large spinach meals. Vegetables are still a valuable part of a healthy diet. With small adjustments, you can keep getting their benefits while reducing the risk that they'll interfere with leg circulation, especially when you're over 50 and on keto. If this was useful, subscribe for more science-backed senior nutrition and keto tips, and talk with your doctor about how these ideas apply to your medications and labs. Thanks for watching, and take good care of those legs.